So the OPXY is one of the most expensive groove boxes I've ever bought. And 18 months later, I'm starting to wonder if it's also one of the most neglected. Now, before the comment section explodes, this isn't a hate video. I still love the OPXY. I still think the hardware is brilliant. But when I look back at everything that's happened since launch, I can't help feeling that this instrument has been standing still, while everything around it keeps moving forward. So let's talk about what actually changed, what didn't, and the 5 updates that could completely change how I feel about the OPXY. So before we talk about updates, I think it's important to explain why I care about this in the first place. So when I got the OPXY, I was immediately hooked. There was something about the workflow that just clicked with me. The portability, the design, the way everything felt so immediate. I could sit on a couch, take it on vacation, or just pick it up for 10 minutes and end up making music for an hour. In fact, I liked it so much that I even made a video about the 3 devices I never planned to sell. And the OPXY was one of them. That's how highly I thought of it. And honestly, I still think it's one of the most inspiring groove boxes ever made. The problem isn't that I stopped liking the OPXY. The problem is that 18 months later, it feels like this instrument has stopped evolving. Now, whenever someone talks about missing features, there's always one argument that comes up. Don't buy gear based on future updates. And honestly, I agree with that. I bought it because I liked the product that existed on day one. But I also think there is a difference between buying a product for what it is today and expecting a premium product to continue evolving over time. When you spend this much money on a modern flagship instrument, you're not just buying hardware, you're buying into a platform. And after 18 months, I think it's fair to ask whether the platform is evolving fast enough. So let's take a step back and look at what actually changed since the OPXY launched. When I think back to the major updates we've received, there are really 3 features that stand out. Sample Slice, Duck LFO, and SoundLink. Those were all introduced in version 1.1.0, but when I look back at everything that has happened since then, most of the updates have focused on bug fixes, stability improvements, workflow refinements, and smaller tweaks. Now, don't get me wrong, bug fixes matter, stability matters, but I kind of expect more from Teenage Engineering. Because, as I said, this is a really expensive groove box, and if you compare to like the Ableton Move, still gets a lot of cool new updates. The Electron Tone work is also getting updates frequently, and really big updates as well. So I mean, compared to them, I think the OPXY is far behind. So yeah, other groove boxes seems to gain new capabilities and new ways of working. And every time that happens, it gives me another reason to pick those devices up and explore them again. The OPXY doesn't really give me that feeling anymore. Not because it isn't capable, but because I feel like I've already explored most of what it has to offer. And that's probably the biggest reason I find myself reaching for it less today than I did a year ago. The frustrating part is that I don't think this is a hardware problem at all. I still think the hardware is fantastic, which is exactly why I think a few well-chosen software updates could completely change the conversation. So if Teenage Engineering asked me what I would focus on next, these would be my top 5 priorities. Let's start with number 5. I want a better undo system. This is probably the least exciting of them, but it's one of those things that affects the workflow every single day. I mean, I would say it's like 50-50. Every time I try to undo, it's always like, will it work this time? No. Next time it may work. I'm not sure what the preconditions are for undoing, but it's not reliable. Oftentimes I can't undo, and that's frustrating. So a more robust undo system is needed. Okay, so number 4 is better MIDI implementation. This machine works great as a standalone device, but I think there's still room to improve how it integrates with larger setups. Number 3, capture function. So if you've been using like Ableton Move, Ableton Push, I think MPC has some capture function also. If you don't know what it is, it's like if you play something and you like it and you have not started any recording, there's no way to recall that. But if you use Move, for example, you can just press capture and everything you just did will appear in a sequence. It's listening to everything you do on the machine, even though you're not recording. If you have gotten used to that function and then you use a groovebox that don't have this feature, you're missing it. I definitely do. Let's go on to number 2, new synth engines. I mean, when I got the OPXY, I thought that the synth engines were pretty good. I liked the overall sound quality they had, but over time I think they are kind of boring. They don't inspire me as much anymore. I think it needs some new synth engines because, let's face it, the included ones is not that impressive. It doesn't need to be this super advanced. I mean, some simple VA synth engines would be lovely, with maybe some more tweakability than you have right now. Maybe they could implement so if you press shift and change these, you change some different values. That would be lovely. I really struggle to get some really nice bass sounds on this machine. It always ends up using this default one. It's good, but I'm really bored with it. So yeah, we need more synth engines to the OPXY, please. And for the number 1 spot, this is also a Ableton Move feature. It's randomized templates. I mean, every time you start a new track here, you get these default sounds, which are pretty boring. And the first thing you always need to do is to start going through presets, which is just boring. So why not give the possibility to start a new project with totally random sounds? Everything is randomized, like the bass, the drums, the pads, the keys. I mean, that function shouldn't be that hard to implement. It's not that this is something advanced, it's just a randomization of the selected instruments on every channel. And that would make a huge difference, for me at least. I love this function on the Move. So yeah, that's my number 1. Having said all that, I'm actually more hopeful than this video make it sound, because Teenage Engineering has surprised me before. A great example is the OP1 Field. For the longest time, I would have bet money that we'd never seen a proper undo feature on that device. And then it happened, which proves that TE is willing to revisit products and add features that many people assume would never arrive. So, despite all my criticism, I don't think the story of the OPXY is finished. In fact, I think the opposite. I think the hardware is so good that it would only take a handful of meaningful updates to completely change the conversation around this device. That's why I'm making this video in the first place. Not because I've given up on it, but because I think it has so much untapped potential. But I'd love to hear what you think. Do you think the OPXY is standing still? And if you could add one feature tomorrow, what would it be? Let me know in the comments. So that's all I had. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!